Hi, everyone. This is Kynan Thistlethwaite and Jose Vega with Declaring Independence. We have a very special guest today. We actually have a film director, J.R. Heffelfinger, who's going to talk to us about his new film and some of the implications that we've drawn from it. So, Mr. Heffelfinger, why don't you introduce yourself to us?
Sure. Hey, how you doing? My name is J.R. Heffelfinger. You can call me Hef, kind it's no need for formalities. I am a filmmaker born and raised in New York City. My family is from Puerto Rico, but I know my last name is a little misleading. Um, and and yeah, I'm the director of 815 Hiroshima. Yeah.
Great. So why don't you just tell us a little bit about the film? I know it's based on a book by Dr. Mikamo. So why don't you tell us how you got in touch with her and what the basis of making the film was like?
Yeah, for sure. So my connection with Dr. Akiko Mikamo is I had met her a couple of years ago, and she's a clinical psychologist and very intelligent, and we have a mutual friend, and so I had made a short film, very short. I made a 1 minute short film called Segundos in Puerto Rico, which to me, if there's anything that I had done up until this film, that and I've done a lot of things. I made a feature film in Japan when I was 24. I moved to Tokyo, was an English teacher, and obviously that is a very different movie, and the skills and the things you learn along the way have evolved quite a bit, but there's something nice about being naive and taking risks, and you can make whatever you want, right? It's kind of a luxury to not have any understanding of what you're getting yourself into. So I had made a short film called Segundos that was had a a world premiere at Mill Valley Film Festival, and my friend Nini Lehuin, who is the producer of this film, she had another film that she made with Robin Wright called The Dark of Night, and that was also having a screening at Mill Valley. And so we kind of reconnected there, and my film was shared with Akiko, and she just loved the Gundas. And then shortly thereafter, she was interested in pursuing telling her father's story. She had written a book, 815, a story of survival and forgiveness, and it's got a couple different titles, and it's been published in I don't know how many different languages. But I was given the book to read, and I couldn't forgive me and I couldn't put it down. It's fascinating. It's an incredible story. And but she was like she was interested in doing something and doing it very quickly. And there was always this urgency around it. And and in some way, it's as if she had known, that the film needed to get made for a couple different reasons. One was obviously the sorry, let me mute this for a second. One was the upcoming, the fact that the pandemic hit. So we had kind of flown out to Japan and got a lay of the land and figured out how to kind of start taking this story and developing it and kind of creating a script and figuring out what we could do with the resources that we had. It's a very modest budget, and I have a skill to kind of make sure that whatever we accomplish, it's going to look amazing. And despite any of the limitations involved from a financial or production standpoint, I think you kind of when you do this kind of work, you're always leaning into there are no obstacles, there are only opportunities, and you just figure out how to make it happen and to get it done. So yeah, we had gone down to Hiroshima and kind of we we really started putting the pieces together and developing a script. And I think the breakthrough for us was the idea that I had was, how do I take this story that she's written and be able to kind of communicate it? So that was where the concept of having a reenactment of an interview with Shinji. So when you watch the film, there is this amazing Japanese actor named Sotaro Tanaka, who we use as we basically create have a reenactment of an interview, which is all based on on Shinji's real words, and we were able to then have it kind of being conveyed, through this kind of interview, this confessional vibe. It's really nicely lit. It's kind of it's called a bookend light, and it's kind of sets the tone. And what that allows us to do then is to be able to cut into parts of the story to help us, illustrate some of the key things that he's talking about. And then the other fascinating thing around it was, we did all these reenactments in Brooklyn. So the film is, the film is shot in a lot of it was shot in Hiroshima, and then having the opportunity to also then do these reenactments in Brooklyn, I think was just, there's something about that, the magic of that, the fact that I'm an American director, being trusted to kind of tell this story and guide this process and bring all these pieces and people together and crystallize a vision and execute it, is a great honor. And it really was an adventure to be able to kind of do that.
Yeah.
And sorry, you go ahead.
And just so the audience knows, this is actually a firsthand account and retelling of the August 6th bombing of Hiroshima, which is told through the author's father.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think that was, I think one of the questions you had wanted me to think about in advance was around like the approach to telling this story. And oftentimes when you deal with this subject matter, this particular subject, it is, it's always, it's almost like there is this like bird's eye view in black and white around what happened on that day. And the numbers are great and it is harrowing. But how do you translate that into something that you can actually see and feel and experience, right? So it's like this story is always, there's a lot of facts and figures, and it's like, it's like the news of it is something a lot of us do know, but how do you transmute that, and how do you kind of find the tragic poetry in that story? And so being able to have a first person account and bring us on the ground and to experience and see it with their own eyes and to feel the pain and suffering and all the twists and turns that happened along the way over the course of that, the immediate aftermath of the bomb, followed by all the things that occurred after that, was a challenge, but it was a great adventure to do. And I feel incredibly honored to have been given the opportunity to do that. I had, a little bit more about me. My mission as a filmmaker, as an artist, is always to do three things. And that is to unveil hidden truths about the human condition, give voice to the voiceless, and make the invisible visible. And if you are able to do just one of those things when you make a movie, then you're working with sacred material and you're doing really good things. And in this film, we were able to do all three of those things, I feel. And for that, I'm just excited for this to be seen and for Shinji's message, and not only Shinji's message, but the reality and the truth and of the event to be understood. There's a quote by John Hersey who talks about what has kept the world safe since 1945, since the bomb. Hasn't been deterrence in the sense of fear of any specific weapons. It's been the memory. It's been the memory of what happened at Hiroshima, and the memory is fading, and the story is not necessarily being told, right? Oppenheimer, for instance, tells a part of this story, and I feel like it is important, and all that. But I feel like there's something about it that for me I was dissatisfied with. And there was, I think the treatment of certain aspects of the story were completely ignored. And so I'm excited about this period of time because here is one movie that cost $100 million to make. That was not ours. And tells this 3-hour long story about this man And here is another story that had 1/4 of 1% of that budget, and telling the different story about a different man who was there on the ground, about him and his father, and their experience and their story of survival and the resiliency of the human spirit, and ultimately forgiveness, which really is, a complicated but really profound, you know, um, expression that uh, you know we were able to capture and express in the film. And so there's like this really interesting thing right now with Oppenheimer and 815. And it's like this weird underdog story of this amazing, I think we made a very impactful film. I know we talked a little bit about it after the screening, and I was so grateful to talk to you about it. And and it's just interesting, and I'm not comparing the two. They're two different films, but there obviously is a single moment in each film that is represented, and
Right.
from there, it's what happens and how do we engage with the material. And in that regard, I feel like what we were able to accomplish with this film and to bring you on that journey, is something I'm incredibly proud of. And I know you saw it the other night, and I'd love to hear your thoughts about it, and if there's time for it. But
Yeah.
yeah, that's kind of
Well, well, you touched on one thing I thought about, which Oppenheimer, it's very great in presenting the tragedy of this man, right? Who has to
mm,
reckon with what he's unleashed in the world, And I think it's a tragic mistake is he could have prevented that. There was one point in the movie where one of the scientists, Leo Szilard, he gives him a petition to sign, right, to the president to not to drop the bomb, but to have a demonstration near the Japanese islands, which unfortunately that never happened, and Oppenheimer never signed that petition. So you see, a mistake, a tragic mistake right there. But it doesn't, like you said, I don't think it deals well with actually capturing what people dealt with in Hiroshima and Nagasaki and just how horrifying this bombing really was and the conditions that it created, which leads me to one question because in the Q&A panel, Dr. Mikomo had stated that she had believed that Japan was already militarily defeated as a country. And of course, before the bombing, there was horrific these fire bombs, which killed
yeah.
many, many people. And there's you have the top military brass in the United States, people like MacArthur, Eisenhower, on record stating, listen, we already blockaded this nation. We're just adding insult to injury with this bomb. So I would like to ask you, do you believe there is any justification for the use of the atomic bomb on Hiroshima and or Nagasaki?
I mean, I'm sure they could find, the folks involved will always find a justification. And, but I think time tells, and more facts emerge around the realities of everything. And so, no, I don't think there is justification for the use of the bomb. But justification is like, is there some like moral justification? The answer is no. But from a military standpoint, I'm sure that they're going to find ways to say, well, there's, and I've seen different, arguments and different evidence supporting both sides of that, but at the end of the day, it happened, and we can all look back and I think the evidence is pretty clear now that there was no justification to use it, and we really have unleashed, a great danger, ever since that time. And so the clock is, we are ever increasingly closer to midnight, and that's not just because of the proliferation of nuclear weapons, but it's the constellation of factors that are we're currently dealing with as a planet and as a species. And yeah, it's not how do we stop the clock, or how do we kind of find a way to address all this multitude of problems and issues that we're dealing with? and come together as yeah, as a species to 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 prevent ourselves from killing our, from destroying our planet and ultimately destroying ourselves. So yeah.
I thank you for that. Could you say something, and the movie deals with this, about the longer term effects, medically and psychologically, of the atomic bombings on the Japanese population, and how the protagonist of the film, Shinji, how he deals with those effects?
Yeah, I mean, it is interesting, and it's a fact that I was not aware of. We are not taught. This was not in the history book that I was given and that was used when I was growing up. And so I learned a lot during the telling of the story. I spent a lot of time in Hiroshima and had spent time at the Hiroshima Peace Memorial and Museum. And if you hadn't had an opportunity to go there, it's definitely an experience and worth the visit. Um, yeah, I had no idea of all of these other, the impacts that the shockwave of the bomb had kind of, affected and impacted folks. And I think Shinji's story in particular, and I think it's interesting, like the generational trauma, right? And I think like the what I was completely fascinated with was how he, those who lost everything after the bombing, who weren't able to kind of show their family history, were considered street rats. They were ostracized in society. Like, so it's profound, right? Like, here is a portion of the population who, or, survived the bombing and then who lost everything. And then, because they don't have evidence or proof of their lineage, or their family connections, were treated differently. And so I'm sure there's a whole nother documentary to be made about just that and how is that something that even can be, how does that exist and come about? And then, I think for us, what was fascinating and this part in the story, not spoiler alert, but, I think how he was able to kind of reconnect some of these pieces, is fascinating. So yeah, I don't want to say too much about the film, but we did have a screening at the United Nations the other night, which was pretty impactful. So across the street at the UN Plaza, and across the street is the scene of the crime, so to speak, one of the crimes. And it was, for me, it was powerful for us to kind of have our screenning there during for that purpose. So it was to me a really it was a great honor to be able to do that. Oddly enough, we had a screening at the G7, like we were part of the G7 summit in Japan this past, so we were at Hachoza Cinema, which is like this really beautiful theater where they hold premieres for Hollywood movies when they come to town. And we were available and screened, and it was an invitation to international press and media and obviously world leaders. And it's that also was something that happened this year too that we were really proud about. Now I don't know how many world leaders showed up. There's a lot of talk, and there's a lot of like, hey, a lot of a lot of these folks like to say the right things, but the actions that that their governments commit to aren't aligned with the words that they're saying. I know a lot of these guys went to the Peace Memorial Museum and wrote in the book and left their well wishes and all that. But what are their actions and what is really happening is a very different thing. So
I think that's important you bring that up, because one thing about the United States, right, is that they've in fact never officially forsworn the first use of thermonuclear weapons. In other words, we don't have a no first use policy. And in the present Biden administration, admittedly, it seems like there are more proposals coming from certain circles for the use of nuclear weapons.
yeah.
And this is important, I think, to think of in the lead up to the conflict in Ukraine, because 3 days before Russia's invasion of that nation, Putin had said in a televised speech, he said, "I will explain that the U.S. strategic planning documents, such as Prompt Global Strike, released in February 2007, stipulate an option of the so-called preemptive strike on an enemy's missile systems. And we know who the main enemy for the US and NATO is. It is Russia." So with that in mind, I don't know what your thoughts on that are, but what is your view of the level of the danger with respect to the possible sudden, rapid, and unplanned escalation of nuclear war in the world context?
I mean, the level is very high. And I think we can all agree there is this kind of collective trauma that exists, and that we kind of live, I mean, with this in the back of our heads, whether either like consciously or subconsciously. And this is one of many things that our society collectively as a planet have to deal with. You know, we have our own other unique subgenres of trauma in this country that are impacting us, but there is this collective trauma that exists, and I think it takes a toll on us psychologically, and I think there's a battle for us to, you know, to kind of raise our awareness and to kind of hone our consciousness and to connect. I mean, the work that you're doing is so inspiring. I mean, I saw you guys, you know, standing up. Was it to like, you know, like speaking up and standing up, and there was what you did one. There was one recently with like AOC, for instance, you know, and just,
Right.
you know, calling out like, hey, listen, like this, your words are not aligning with your actions here. And I just find it really, you know, a lot of us at our age were like had been beaten down or a little tired and all that jazz, you know, and we find our own ways to express the, you know, our truths and the universal truths, and you know what's right and what's wrong, and you know, and you know, we all are trying to, as an artist, I think we're trying to fight the best fight, and you know, and so you know what you're doing with even this podcast, or you know, what you're doing tomorrow. You've got this amazing event. I wish I was in town. I have to fly back home to Florida. I'm born and raised in New York, but you know, for tax purposes, Florida is also a home. And but what you're doing is really inspiring, and I'm just so happy we met. But I want to just give you a shout out, you and Jose, for the work that you're doing, because it's important work, and activism is important. Being able to stand up and not be scared to disagree or argue or voice your opinion, like and to have debates. Like the art of debate has died. You know, I think we need to cultivate and encourage debate, and it's okay to disagree, but we need to talk. And you know, like this film, I feel like our film, in a clever way, is not political at all. There's not one flag that you see waving in this film, you know, and you know, it's this subject is complicated. You know, we were given some, you know, challenging questions around like, do you think it was right or wrong? And it's like, well, we're not. I mean, we're happy to go into all of those things, but the film speaks for itself, and you know, to be able to achieve a story that does not get lost in some political debate, but to represent some, you know, some moral truths, and it's not easy to do that, but I think we did do that with this film. And I mean, I don't know, what do you think?
Well, actually, just before that, you mentioned something about calling out AOC. Were you referring to something specifically?
Yeah, you guys, I saw. I mean, I think I did a
Oh.
little bit of research before the call,
I see,
and
okay.
you got, yeah. I mean,
Okay.
It's on X, or whatever you call it now. X.
Yeah.
I saw your. Yeah. Did
Okay.
you get into trouble for that?
All right. I see. Okay. Cool. No. It's cool. I just I wasn't sure if you knew about what Kynan and I are doing with the confrontations that we did with AOC and others. That's all.
No, I mean,
So
I don't. Only know what I saw. I don't know what you guys are picking up.
no. What you saw is what you.
What
Yeah.
I did what I did see was two intelligent young men standing up and speaking truth to power and voicing offering some challenging statements for that power to confront.
Hmm.
So
Right.
I think it's great. Keep doing what you're
I
doing.
I
Yeah.
appreciate that. I was gonna say on what you were talking about how your film is not political, really. And one way it actually is, Shakespeare used to write his plays at like moments in history that were very politically tumultuous. And so he would make these plays for the incoming king or queen, as a way to kind of like give them, a lesson or a story, but also for the population. Because they were critical of the monarchy, they were critical of the government at the time without actually having to directly address it. And I think, you as an artist, you definitely understand that idea and that role of what real art is supposed to do, because not only does real art comment on what we're going through now, but it's supposed to last the test of time. It's supposed to be relevant just as it is today as it would be 1,000 years from now, right? And so, without having seen the film, but just hearing your conception of what you think your film is doing gives me a lot of confidence and faith that you might have actually achieved that goal. But I think Kynan might be a better judge of character, if you would say.
I would say no, it definitely holds up to that standard. And you were asking me about the message at the end of the film. And the message at the end is very hard hitting. This idea of forgiveness that Shinji has, even after one of the his only recollection of that, his physical recollection of that event, the pocket watch, right, is stolen from that exhibit. And Dr. Mikamoshi calls her father, incredibly upset, but her father says, listen, don't be angry. I'm upset about it, but it doesn't do to be angry. And I think that holds not just individually, but for the rest of the world, because nations are confronted against one another. We have a situation in the world where the world is divided into blocks. Um, you know, and that's part of the reason why we are facing this dangerous situation of a thermonuclear war, which also the film addresses. But yeah, just this idea of mercy and forgiveness, I think, is a very important part of the film. And it relates to how we should behave individually and how nations should, conduct relations with one another.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that means a lot. And Jose, you're right. I think maybe what I was trying to say is the film, our approach was not politically motivated. I think maybe there's the nuance in that language there. And I think but in a way, I do agree with you in the sense that, like, when it comes back to my mission, right, it's to unveil hidden truths about the human condition, to give voice to the voiceless and make the invisible visible. So when you're operating from that space, I guess anything you do is a political act, right? Because that is the confrontation we're always at. We're always fighting, to give voice to those who have no voice. We're always trying to uncover or understand the intricacies and the complications of the human condition and what it means to be human. And we're also trying to as an artist, make the invisible visible. I mean, literally make something that occurred that Oppenheimer comes nowhere near showcasing. Maybe that's a bad word, but illustrating like what happened, and how it looked and how it felt and what it felt like. And I understand that maybe artistic choice in doing that, but I think, you know, I'm really proud of how we did it and how we handled that topic and with the respect and care and that it required in order to do it artistically, respectfully. Not easy things to do, especially with limited resources to do it. And so we like to joke about the film being, well, not joke, but we like to say like the film is a miracle about a miracle. Like it's the miracle of Shinji and his father Fukuichi, who were very close to the bomb blast on the roof of their home, and surviving their journey through that hell. And then our miracle is the miracle of making the movie of that story, and there's a lot of interesting things. Why this is a really interesting, a lot of how the film went down, and the folks along the way. In some ways, we feel as there's a lot of divine kind of guidance in the subject and how we got to do it. For instance, that movie I was telling you about, the one I made in Puerto Rico called Segundos. The little girl in that film, that's my best friend's daughter. Her birthday is August 6th. And because of that movie, Akiko loved it. And obviously the bomb dropped on August 6th, 1945. So there's really, and I don't know how it all works, but I'm certainly aware that there are connections and there's things that kind of, there's a lot of synchronicities and things that kind of line up, I mean, even, meeting you on Friday and talking to you, like that, and having an opportunity during a very busy time, it's I love looking at the world that way, and I certainly, I'm grateful for how guided this process has been and this journey has been to tell this story, because it's far greater than me as a director or our production team. This is a story that needs to be told, and this is the right time to tell it. And I think clearly, like Oppenheimer's coming out, and our movies, this is just a really kind of perfect opportunity to, kind of take advantage of the fact that this is a subject that's back in front of people's, eyes and on top of their minds. And, so here we are.
Yes. Jose, do you have anything?
Well, I was just gonna say I totally love the way you see the world, especially the synchronicities that you're talking about, because I'm a big believer that all motion creates. In other words, when you move your hands like this, the air, you impress upon the air every single particle around the world, right? So actually, yeah, everything you do has a cause and effect, right? And that's just motion and moving, right? So people don't even think about the power that their own words have too, because your words are also an impression on the air. So yeah, no, I just wanted to, I really resonated with what you just said there. That's, yeah.
Yeah. Could you guys talk to me a little bit about, I know I left my flyer downstairs, I was going to hold it up, but you're doing an event tomorrow, right?
Yes.
You guys want to talk to me a little bit about that? Is that cool to do?
Yeah, of course. That's like one of our next questions here. Yeah.
Nice.
About
All right, cool.
Yeah. So what it is we are having a peace rally happening tomorrow from 1 to 4, followed by a Mozart Requiem from 6 to 8 at All Souls Church. And we're doing the rally 1 to 4 at Dag Hammarskjöld Plaza. That is happening on Sunday, tomorrow, because of the anniversary of the bombing of the Hiroshima, nuclear bombing. And the idea then with the concert is that we're also doing a requiem for those that lost their lives that day, Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And really, it's also more of like a process. It doesn't end on Sunday. We're going really Sunday through Wednesday, because there's also Nagasaki that happened on the 9th, right? So it's like a 3-day long process that we've got actually going on, and it's also kind of the kickoff point for a peace movement, a real peace movement, because to be pro-peace doesn't mean you're just anti-war. It includes that too, but it means you're pro-development. It means you're pro ending world hunger. It means you're pro making sure everyone has, adequate education and access to housing. And that's what it means to be pro peace, right? It means you're actually for something. And so what's happening tomorrow is the start of that, the kickoff of that. And we have been asking for endorsements from lots of different folks from all over the political spectrum, because the idea is we need to unite. And the beautiful thing about this is that it's international. We've had over like 35 organizations internationally endorse this rally, and I know there's going to be foreign press there tomorrow too. So it's going to be wild. Did I get that right,
man,
Kanye?
I might need I might need to
That's
change
good.
my flight, man.
Hey,
I
if you
have a screening
do,
tomorrow. I have a screening tomorrow. I mean, I got my trumpet, man. I will play a trumpet call. I mean,
if
it
you
sounds
do,
amazing.
I
Yeah.
can promise you we will make you a speaker. If you
Yes.
Oh
do.
man. Okay, I gotta talk to my fiance about that. She's waiting for me
Even if
down
you just come
back
at the
at home.
beginning, if you come at the
Yeah,
beginning and just like, because what time's your screener tomorrow?
it's in Gainesville. So it's in Florida. I was supposed to do a speech there or give a talk there, but we'll figure. I'm like really interested in what you guys are doing, and so yeah. Let me make some phone calls, but I might get in some trouble about that. Thanks. But yeah,
Yeah.
I would love to be there if I can. But I love what you guys are doing. Um, it's going to be a great day tomorrow. I'm really excited. Um, how many folks do you think are going to be in attendance? Do you have any idea?
You know, that's
You
uh
never know.
that's the $1 million question. We've gotten a lot of press. I
Yeah.
mean, I was on Jimmy Dore's show. I don't know if you're familiar with Jimmy Dore at all. Um,
No.
okay,
I
yeah.
should be though,
I was
probably. Yeah.
Yeah, Jimmy Dore's show was he helped us generate the last kind of finances we needed for the rally. There were about 11,000 people watching when I was pitching the thing. There's going to be other famous YouTubers who are just going to be on the ground recording the thing. You never really know,
Wow.
but there is a lot of hype around the event. So,
Yeah.
our conservative estimate is maybe like 200, 250, maybe.
It's
But
amazing.
I got
Yeah.
a feeling
It could be. Yeah.
we're gonna pack that place. It's gonna be like what happened at Union Square yesterday. You saw what happened at Union Square yesterday?
I did not. What happened
Oh,
at
there
Union
was
Square yesterday?
like riots or something happened. There were like thousands of people there because of something about a free PlayStations or something. I don't know.
Are you kidding me? Wow. It's like
No.
we're fighting over, and we're excited. We get excited over the wrong thing, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Um, and
Well,
there's another battle that needs to be fought for that, which is
you
the one
should.
for our
I
attention and what we
Yeah,
care about. Yeah.
you should definitely, if you could change your flight and speak and then get on a flight so you can still make your speech. Like if you come from 1 to 1:30 or something, we would totally make that work.
Oh, interesting. Okay. What time is the kickoff? At 4?
No, it's at 1.
Oh, it starts at
1
1.
o'clock.
1.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Let's see what can be done.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I play the trumpet. I've been playing the trumpet since I was 10 years old, and I actually met my partner, Samantha. I met her at a drum circle in Maria Hernandez Park in Bushwick during the pandemic, in that summer, and we fell in love, and we decided to leave. Moving. She got to Winnebago, and we traveled across the United States during the pandemic for 18 months, living out of a 21-foot long 1986 Winnebago. But I met her because I was playing the trumpet, at a drum circle that was, trying to bring our community together during a time when, just our worlds were falling apart, and so yeah, I'll bring my horn if I can come tomorrow. I would love to bring my horn and do some kind of a herald,
If I
just to kind
still,
of kick things off. Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah.
man. That would be great. Yeah.
If I
Yeah.
still had
We'll
my
figure it out.
trombone, I played with you. Yeah.
Hell yeah, hell yeah. I know we have a few more minutes, and I'm not sure what part of this is going to be used in the show, or obviously, but
Yeah.
you guys are both from New York City?
Yes, we are.
Sweet,
Yep.
awesome, man, cool. cool.
I'm
Well,
from the
me too.
Bronx.
Born and raised. You're from the Bronx? Nice, cool, man.
Where are
And
you?
what about you?
Oh.
I'm from Brooklyn. I'm from Williamsburg, Brooklyn, and I'm actually at my parents' house right now. And yeah, I went to LaGuardia High School, and
You know, if you do get your flight changed, come to our dress rehearsal. I mean it, because you won't be able to stay for our concert we're having afterwards. We are having a dress rehearsal today from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock. You'll be able to experience the concert as if you were, since you can't come
no
tomorrow.
kidding.
Yeah.
Right. All right, we'll figure it out. We'll see what I can do. My flight's supposed to be leaving today at 4, but we'll figure it out, man.
Yeah,
I'm
let us know
telling
what
you.
you could do. Yeah.
Please do.
Oh,
No, this
sweet.
would be great if you just sat in for the Requiem. That would be amazing. You ever heard the Requiem?
Dude, yes, of course. It's one of my favorite. It's a favorite. I mean, I've been playing classical music and for a very long time, and so I've had the opportunity to play at Carnegie Hall a number of times with like different, like the New York Youth Symphony, and I played at Riverside Church. I've had the opportunity to play at some really sacred places in the city, and then Requiem is hauntingly beautiful and a true masterpiece. It's really a beautiful choice, for tomorrow.
Well, this
So,
is
Yeah.
amazing.
Awesome.
I'm so glad we met you, man. Because we're
Yeah,
classical
man, me too.
musicians too. Kynan and I.
No kidding, really?
Yeah, I'm
We're
singing in the
singing
Requiem.
in it.
We're both singing in it. Yeah.
What? Oh, now
Yeah.
you
I'm
tell
the
me
bass.
we did all this time in our interview. Now you tell me at the very end that I'm talking to fellow musicians and artists. That's
No,
beautiful,
we're
man.
gonna have to stay in contact. No matter what happens, we got to stay in contact because we're gonna
Oh
bring you
yeah,
back on the show. We have to do. We have so much more to talk about. Yeah.
Yeah.
You just opened up another
absolutely,
can
man.
of worms.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Lastly, our film is coming to PBS. It's local. It's going to be like a local affiliates throughout the United States. So like different times and different listings are happening for the film as it rolls out. Right now we have like 40% of the market across the PBS universe in the United States. And we are hoping to learn. There's some things that we are cooking up for UN Week in September. So there may be an opportunity for us to collaborate and do something together. But my goal is, for the film just to continue to get seen and the word to be spread and the message to be shared. But yeah, there's to learn more about the film, 815documentary.com, and I believe that's the right website. We have a couple different ones. I'm always doing different things. Yeah, 815documentary.com, and then my personal business, I have my own production company and creative agency. It's called runawayhorses.com. So to learn more about, the work that I do outside, the other work that we do, Runaway Horses, which is, that'll be another story for us to talk about next time we talk about how and why it's called Runaway Horses and all that jazz. But
So earlier this year, on January 24, 2023, the doomsday clock was moved to 90 seconds before midnight. And that is the closest it has ever been since its inception in 1947. Today, as we gather to remember the tragic event that unfolded on this day 78 years ago, the bombing of Hiroshima and shortly thereafter Nagasaki, we are reminded of the power of memory, the significance of our shared humanity, and the resounding call for a lasting peace. John Hersey, American writer and journalist, said, "What has kept the world safe from the bomb since 1945 has not been deterrence in any sense of fear of specific weapons, so much as it's been memory, the memory of what happened at Hiroshima." So my name is J.R. Heffelfinger, and I am the director of a new film called 815 Hiroshima, From Father to Daughter, based on the book. Thank you. There it goes. That was a poster. Based on the book by Dr. Akiko Mikamo. The film is a first-person account of the horrors of nuclear war and the resilience of the human spirit, told through the experiences of her father, Hibakusha Shinji Mikamo. 815 begins airing today on PBS stations across the United States. I urge you all to see it and hear Shinji's message, the power of love and forgiveness, and his wish for world peace. So to learn more about the film, please visit 815documentary.com. So I began my speech with the performance of Auld Lang Syne, a song often shared at the dawn of new beginnings. And as we reflect upon the anniversary of Hiroshima and Nagasaki, let us remember that our world stands on the precipice. Though the hands of time move closer to midnight, we are reminded that our shared destiny is in our hands. So there's a quote by Horace Mann that serves as my North Star, and I'd like to share it with you. He said, "Be ashamed to die until winning some victory for humanity." Now, I'm sure this concept has been said in different ways and with different words, but this concept has echoed through the corridors of time. These words urge us to carry the torch of progress, to strive for a better world, where the horrors of Hiroshima and Nagasaki are not repeated, where justice, compassion, and peace are cherished and celebrated and are real. So may the bravery we exhibit, the revolutionary acts of love and compassion we express and reflect in our lives, serve as our clarion call, urging all of us to awaken from the slumber of complacency and embrace the urgency of the moment and make our voices heard. So be ashamed to die until winning some victory for humanity. Thank you, and may peace be your guiding light. Thank you.